There's no such thing as coincidence. You've just been trained not to see the pattern. From the moment you could name things, they told you some events just happen. That strange dream before your car accident, coincidence. Meeting the right person at the perfect time, coincidence. Seeing repeating numbers for days and then receiving life-changing news, coincidence. It was always brushed off, unexplained, unimportant, accidental. But deep down, you knew better. Something was trying to speak to you, and every time you almost listened, the world around you told you to ignore it. But what if you weren't imagining things? What if these strange alignments weren't mistakes, but messages? What if you've spent your entire life mistaking a conversation with the universe for static noise? This isn't superstition or delusion. It's a forgotten language, a system too precise to be random. What they call coincidence, you'll soon see for what it really is. The universe reaching out. And now, finally, you're ready to hear it. You were never taught to see. You were taught to look away. From the earliest moments of your life, the world around you began shaping your perception. What to notice, what to dismiss, what to label as real, and what to cast aside as imagination. You were told that only what could be measured, repeated, or explained was worth your attention. Everything else? Coincidence, fantasy, a distraction from the real world. As a child, you noticed things adults didn't. You saw faces in the clouds, patterns in shadows, felt emotions in rooms before anyone spoke. You picked up on timing, meaning, energy, but when you asked questions, they laughed. When you pointed out patterns, they shrugged. And slowly, without you even realizing, your intuitive compass was dulled by their need for certainty, their need for control. They couldn't explain synchronicity, so they buried it under logic, probability, and 100 convenient definitions of randomness. The schooling system played its part, too. You weren't rewarded for noticing patterns in your life, only for memorizing the ones in textbooks. The bell rang, and you moved. The answers were already decided. You just had to repeat them. Intuition was downgraded to a distraction. Questions became risks. Wonder was swapped for efficiency. You weren't taught to explore your inner world, only how to suppress it. Every sign the universe sent, those strange timings, those meaningful encounters, those impossible coincidences, you were taught to shrug them off and keep moving. But not everyone shrugged them off. Some ancient cultures saw synchronicity as sacred. They didn't divide the world into spiritual and scientific. They knew life itself was layered, symbolic, intelligent. A hawk flying overhead wasn't just a bird, it was a message. A dream wasn't random, it was a doorway. Patterns in numbers, echoes in events, strange alignments in time. These weren't anomalies. They were guides, markers. Proof that reality was not a flat line but a web, one that spoke in symbols and rhythm. But that way of seeing was wiped out by a culture obsessed with control. Now here we are. You wake up feeling like something's missing, like you're out of sync with your own life. You're surrounded by noise, alerts, deadlines, distractions, but you're starving for meaning. Because deep down, something in you remembers what you've forgotten. You feel it in those moments that stop you cold. A phone call from someone just as you thought of them. A song playing at the exact moment you needed to hear it. A chance encounter that sets everything in motion. The logical part of your mind says it's just chance, but your body knows it isn't. And maybe that's why you're here. Because somewhere in the noise, you felt a pattern. You've started noticing the edges again. The soft whisper of a deeper intelligence moving through your life. And the truth is, you were never wrong to feel that. You were just too early. But now, the timing is different. Now you're ready to see what others were taught to ignore. Some of what we're about to explore can't be said openly here. That's why we created Insights Academy, a free newsletter where we go beyond the surface and share what we can't say on YouTube. For a limited time, you'll also get a copy of the Kybalion when you sign up. The link is in the description, because the truth is, this world isn't random. It's coded, designed, alive. You've been told to live like a machine, predictable, explainable, linear. But life is not a machine. It's a rhythm, a mystery, a pattern that responds to your awareness. And synchronicity is how that pattern reaches out. It's how life breaks character and speaks directly to you. Now the question becomes, will you listen? Carl Jung saw what most people spend their whole lives ignoring. He didn't stumble across synchronicity as a passing curiosity. He lived it, studied it, mapped it. And for that, much of what he uncovered was buried, dismissed, or stripped of its deeper implications. Because Jung wasn't just offering a new theory, he was threatening an entire worldview, one built on control, predictability, and the illusion of separateness. According to Jung, synchronicity was not coincidence. It wasn't luck or probability. It was a mirror of meaning. He defined it as the experience of two or more events that are meaningfully related, but have no direct causal link. In other words, something outside the laws of cause and effect, a hidden thread that binds mind and matter together. You think of someone, and they call. You dream of a symbol, and see it the next day in a place you've never been. You follow a strange pull down a street you don't usually take, and end up meeting the exact person who alters your entire path. Not because you planned it, but because something deeper was at work. Jung believed we all swim in a shared psychic field, the collective unconscious. It's a storehouse of archetypes, patterns, symbols, and memories that transcend individual experience. And synchronicities, he said, are eruptions from this deeper layer. They are how the hidden structure of reality breaks the surface. They don't just happen to you, they happen through you. They're part of a wider language, one that doesn't rely on logic or words, but resonance and timing. That's why synchronicities feel so personal and yet so universal, because they are. You feel them in your gut, in your skin, in your breath. They bypass the rational mind and go straight to the soul. And Jung knew this. He saw it in his patients, in his own life, in the ancient myths and dreams he studied obsessively. He saw that reality isn't just a collection of material objects obeying linear rules. It's a living system of meaning, and when you're aligned with it, it speaks to you. But the modern world had no room for that kind of thinking. Synchronicity didn't fit the model. It couldn't be measured, replicated, or pinned down, and so it was shelved, reduced to mysticism or mere curiosity. Psychology moved on, and Jung's deeper work was pushed to the margins. Yet it never disappeared. Like the symbols it described, it resurfaced again and again in the lives of those willing to look. You've probably felt it yourself, those moments where something irrational made more sense than anything logical ever could, where everything lined up too perfectly to be a chance, where you felt seen by something you couldn't name. That wasn't a fluke. It was a glimpse into a different kind of order, one that doesn't need to control or explain, because it knows. Synchronicity is the rebel child of science and soul. It defies hard categories. It's the place where myth, memory, and mathematics meet. And Jung wasn't afraid to go there. He knew that meaning isn't something we impose on the world. It's already there, waiting to be recognized. And once you see it, really see it, everything changes. You stop asking, was that a coincidence? And start asking, what's the message? You've been taught to believe that if something can't be explained, it doesn't exist. But what if the explanation is simply bigger than the system allows? What if reality is not governed solely by laws of matter, but by laws of meaning? That's the map Jung tried to draw. And though they tried to burn it, it still exists, etched not just in books, but in dreams, moments, and experiences like yours. You don't need to become a philosopher to understand synchronicity. You just need to pay attention. And once you do, the same patterns Jung studied start revealing themselves, not in dusty theories, but in your daily life. It's all been waiting. The map was never forbidden. You were just never taught how to read it. You've been told that life happens to you, that you are a passive observer in a clockwork universe, watching cause and effect unfold like dominoes in a sterile, indifferent chain. But that's not how it works. Reality isn't some distant mechanism ticking away behind glass. It's alive. It listens. It responds to you more than you've ever been allowed to believe. Science tried to paint reality as objective, separate, and static. But the deeper we look, the less stable things become. Quantum mechanics shattered that illusion. Particles don't behave like fixed objects. They exist as probabilities until observed. The very act of looking at something changes what it is. You don't just witness the world, you shape it by witnessing. And what is synchronicity if not that principle in motion? The moment when meaning erupts, unprovoked by logic, and aligns with your attention in a way that defies odds. You walk into a bookshop and a single title seems to glow from the shelf, a message you didn't know you needed. You think about an old friend and receive a message from them out of nowhere. You make a decision from a place of uncertainty, and everything suddenly starts aligning as if life had been waiting for you to move. That's not randomness. That's participation. That's a universe that's not just watching you, but dancing with you. This isn't about fantasy. This is about perception. Modern physics tells us that particles can be entangled, connected across space and time in ways we don't fully understand. What happens to one instantly affects the other, regardless of distance. That's not a metaphor. That's reality. And yet, when it shows up in our lives, in ways that feel intimate, emotional, impossible, we call it just a coincidence. Maybe the universe is more responsive than we're willing to admit. Maybe our thoughts, emotions, and choices ripple outward in ways we can't measure yet, but can feel. Maybe synchronicity isn't rare, but common, only filtered out by a culture addicted to logic and control. You've had moments when reality seemed to bend, moments that felt choreographed, like you'd stepped into a script already written, and everything was lining up without your effort. You didn't force it. You followed a pull. That feeling, that flow, that's the language of synchronicity. It's not loud. It doesn't demand. It suggests. It hints. It whispers. But when you listen, it deepens. Think about the times when everything felt off, when nothing aligned, no matter how hard you pushed. And then think about those rare moments when one decision, one yes, one change in direction, triggered a cascade of unexpected alignments. What changed? You didn't just take action, you shifted state. And reality met you there. The systems we live in want you to believe that meaning is internal, and the world outside is cold and dumb. But synchronicity says otherwise. It says the world is aware, that your inner life and outer events are not separate, but entangled. That thought, emotion, intention, these aren't confined to your mind. They are part of a larger conversation. When you start treating your environment not as background noise, but as feedback, everything changes. You begin to see life not as a struggle for control, but as a dance of alignment. You stop forcing. You start sensing. You realize that asking the right question with an open heart often brings an answer, not from a textbook, but from the next thing you see, hear, or stumble into. The universe speaks in patterns, not paragraphs. The more aware you become, the more frequent the synchronicities seem to appear, but they were always there. It's not that reality changes, it's that you finally start noticing. You begin to understand that awareness itself is the key, that the more conscious you are, the more connected you feel. And in that connection, synchronicity becomes not just possible, it becomes the norm. This isn't magic, this is the design. You were never meant to just survive the randomness. You were meant to co-create the rhythm. Reality doesn't just happen, it responds. And it's been waiting for you to respond too. Most people think the universe is silent, that it moves in cold, mechanical indifference. But if that were true, why does it seem to whisper when we're most lost? Why do the signs grow louder when we need them most? It's not silence you've been hearing. It's a language you've forgotten how to read. Synchronicity speaks in symbols. It doesn't use grammar or punctuation. It speaks through patterns, timing, and emotion. A song on the radio that echoes a thought you didn't say out loud. A billboard with a phrase that answers the exact question you were asking in your head. A stranger's comment that shakes something awake in you. These moments feel like accidents, but they aren't. They're responses. Echoes from something bigger, filtered into your reality in ways subtle enough to miss, but powerful enough to change everything if you're paying attention. Think of life like a mirror. It doesn't just reflect your choices, it reflects your inner world. If you're tuned out, caught in stress and noise, the signs blur. But when you're present, even for a second, the reflection sharpens. You begin to notice patterns that were always there. Noticing is the first step. Understanding comes after. That's where symbols come in. Repeating numbers, 11, 11, 222, 333, aren't random. Cultures across time have associated numerical patterns with specific vibrations, archetypes, and spiritual thresholds. You may not know the meaning consciously, but your body responds. It feels different, charged. Noticing these numbers isn't superstition, it's sensitivity. It means you're tuning in. Then there are dreams. Most people treat dreams like mental noise, junk their brain throws out overnight. But dreams are encoded messages. Jung called them the psyche's way of speaking to itself. Sometimes they bring symbols, sometimes warnings, sometimes echoes from something we can't name. But more often than not, they line up with reality in eerie, meaningful ways, especially when something big is shifting. You dream of water when you're drowning in emotion. You dream of keys when you're about to unlock a truth. You dream of someone you haven't seen in years, and then you see them. It's not weird, it's the universe rehearsing. You might have brushed off these moments, laughed them away, but they come back. Because the universe isn't trying to impress you, it's trying to guide you. These are nudges, not lectures. Synchronicity won't force itself on you. It will keep showing up until you're ready to notice. And when you do, you start living in alignment instead of reaction. You may be wondering why it doesn't speak more clearly, why the universe can't just say it outright. But here's the truth. If it spoke in absolutes, you'd stop growing. Synchronicity isn't about giving you the answer. It's about sharpening your awareness. It's a dialogue, not a download. The universe isn't handing you a script. It's offering a map you have to learn to read. That's why signs are personal. What means nothing to someone else can stop you in your tracks. Because synchronicity speaks through the filter of you, your emotions, your symbols, your associations. The message is tailored. That's why it feels so uncanny. It's not generic, it's intimate. Sometimes the signs will feel obvious. Other times they'll feel like riddles. That's by design. Because the goal isn't certainty, it's awakening. You're not being told what to do. You're being asked to pay attention, to sense instead of control, to move with life instead of pushing against it. And once you begin to notice the signs, you'll also start sensing when they're absent. Life will feel louder, but also clearer. The noise doesn't vanish, but the signal gets stronger. You'll begin to trust the current, not fear it. You'll realize the universe isn't chaotic, it's conscious. Synchronicity is the pulse of something intelligent moving through everything. It's how the unseen shows itself, how life leaves breadcrumbs. It won't tell you the whole story, but it will keep giving you the next step, again and again, until you finally understand. You were never walking alone. They taught you that life is random, that things just happen, disconnected, accidental, meaningless. It's a comforting idea for people who need control, because if nothing has meaning, then there's nothing to answer for. No deeper questions to ask, no hidden threads to follow. But here's the truth. Randomness is a mask. What we call chaos is often just complexity we haven't learned to understand yet. Step back far enough, and even the most chaotic patterns reveal order. Nature already knows this. Look at the spiral of a galaxy and the spiral of a seashell. Look at the branching of trees, rivers, and lungs. Fractals, those infinitely repeating patterns, exist everywhere. In coastlines, lightning bolts, blood vessels. What looks messy at first becomes deeply ordered when you understand the geometry behind it. Life is built on repetition, rhythm, self-similarity. There is nothing accidental about it. Now apply that to your own life. How many times have you thought something was meaningless until it wasn't? A missed train leads to a chance meeting. A failed job interview pushes you toward your true calling. A relationship that breaks you becomes the exact pain that leads to your awakening, and still we call it luck, or fate, or coincidence. But it's none of those things. It's alignment through chaos. Order wearing the costume of disorder. Chaos theory tells us that even the most unpredictable systems, weather, traffic, economies, follow certain underlying rules. The butterfly effect is real. A small change in one place can lead to massive consequences elsewhere. That's not just poetic, it's scientific, but it's also symbolic. Because your thoughts, choices, and awareness, those small, invisible forces, can shift the landscape of your reality in ways you'll never fully trace. Synchronicity is that ripple showing up downstream. It's not just meaningful, it's precise. Mystics have always known this. Long before chaos theory and fractals, they talked about the hidden order beneath all things. Hermeticism called it correspondence. As above, so below. Eastern philosophies spoke of the Tao, the way that cannot be named, but can be followed. Indigenous cultures saw nature not as a backdrop, but as a teacher. They knew that meaning doesn't have to be explained to be real. It only has to be felt. But then came the age of rationalism, of dissection and categorization. The mystical became the metaphorical. The poetic became childish. And anything that couldn't be repeated under a microscope was discarded. But meaning isn't built in the lab. It's built in your perception. In the moment something clicks inside you and makes you stop and question what you thought you knew. You are not separate from the patterns around you. You're inside them. Your heartbeat, your breath, your emotions, all move in waves. Your decisions ripple through time. You are both observer and participant. And when you begin to live in that awareness, you stop fearing chaos. You start recognizing that what you once called random might be the most honest expression of truth there is. This doesn't mean everything is predetermined. It means everything is connected. Your free will exists inside a web of influence, some seen, some unseen. You're not trapped in it. You're woven into it. And synchronicity is when the thread tugs, when life nudges you to pay attention, to course correct, to wake up to the conversation that's happening beneath the surface. Most people won't see the pattern because they're looking for control. But you don't need to control the current to move with it. You just need to trust that it's taking you somewhere real, somewhere meant. The more you resist, the louder the signs become. But when you surrender, not in weakness, but in awareness, you begin to flow with life, not against it. And that's when it starts to happen more often. Not because you're manifesting it, but because you're noticing what was always there. The order in the so-called chaos, the message in the noise, the design in the random. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. Because the illusion of randomness only survives as long as you're not paying attention. Once you do, the whole world begins to look different, like a code breaking open in front of you. You've been taught that time is a straight line, that it moves in one direction, from past to present to future, and that you're just a passenger being dragged forward by it. But that model is a cage. It's a comforting illusion for a mind that needs everything to fit into a neat, logical frame. The deeper truth is far stranger. Time doesn't move. You do. Think back to the moments in your life when time felt broken, when everything slowed down during a near-miss accident, when hours disappeared while you were lost in creativity or flow, when a moment of clarity hit you, and it felt like something from the future had whispered to the present. That wasn't your mind playing tricks. That was you slipping outside the illusion. Because time, as we measure it, is just that, a measurement, a framework. But reality doesn't care about clocks. Physics has been wrestling with this for decades. Einstein showed us that time isn't fixed. It bends, stretches, slows. It moves differently, depending on speed and gravity. Some physicists now believe that all moments exist simultaneously, and the past, present, and future are just different slices of the same whole. That means the future isn't ahead of you. It's already here, waiting for you to meet it. Synchronicity lives in that space. It's not bound by linear time. That's why it feels like a glitch when it happens, like the timeline hiccuped. You think about someone and they appear. You dream something, then watch it unfold days later. You feel a strange pull to go somewhere, and something vital happens when you arrive. These aren't coincidences. They're intersections, timelines crossing, possibilities converging. When you get a feeling, an intuition, a vision, you're not making it up. You're sensing a version of reality that already exists. Maybe not in your current path, but close enough to touch. And sometimes, synchronicity is the clue that you're about to step onto that path, or miss it entirely. It's not just about prediction, it's about alignment. You've had moments when things came to you before you were ready. A person, an idea, an opportunity. And because you weren't aligned with that version of you yet, it slipped through your hands. That's not failure. That's feedback. The universe isn't punishing you. It's showing you what's possible when you're fully present. Déjà vu is another breadcrumb. You walk into a room, speak a sentence, and feel like it's happened before. Maybe it has. Maybe you caught a glimpse of this moment in a dream, or in a timeline slightly different from this one. Maybe what you call memory is sometimes precognition, because your consciousness isn't confined to your skull or to your moment on the clock. It's much bigger than that. Synchronicity stretches across these layers. It doesn't care if the cause came before the effect. It cares about meaning, resonance, timing, not by the clock, but by your readiness. It arrives when you're still enough to see it, when you're open enough to receive it, when you're willing enough to move with it, even if it makes no logical sense. Because here's the secret: life isn't linear, it's layered. You're not moving through time. You're collapsing possibilities into reality with every choice you make. You are not a passive passenger. You are a creator, inside a dynamic field. And synchronicity? That's when your inner state and the deeper order of the universe line up so precisely that the illusion of time breaks open, and you see something real. So what if time wasn't what you thought it was? What if you've already felt parts of your future? What if your instincts aren't just reactions, but echoes, signals rippling through a non-linear landscape? What if you've been walking through a world filled with hidden timelines, just waiting for your awareness to activate them? The signs were never late. You were just on your way to catching up. There's a signal inside you that never stopped broadcasting. You've just been tuned to the wrong frequency. In a world that praises noise, it's easy to lose the signal. From the moment you wake up, you're bombarded. Notifications, news, schedules, opinions, algorithms. Your mind gets pulled in 100 directions before your feet even touch the floor. But synchronicity doesn't live in noise. It lives in stillness, in presence, in that rare space between thoughts, where something deeper starts to speak. That voice, the one you hear when you're not trying to force answers, isn't fantasy. It's guidance. It's your intuition. And it's more ancient than any language you were taught to use. But over time, it was drowned out by the world's demands. Be efficient, be logical, be productive. Intuition became irrational. Gut feelings became unreliable. Sensitivity was labeled weakness. And so the very tools you needed to read the signs around you were treated like defects to be fixed. But the signal never left you. You just stopped trusting it. Reconnecting to synchronicity doesn't begin with chasing signs. It starts with noticing yourself, your breath, your body, your state. Because the more scattered your attention, the more distorted the signal becomes. Synchronicity speaks through alignment. When your inner world and the outer world begin to mirror one another, you think it's luck, you think it's fate, but it's you, finally hearing the conversation life has always been trying to have with you. When you slow down, even for a moment, you begin to notice things others miss. You see the flicker of patterns behind people's words. You pick up on shifts in timing. You feel the rhythm of events rather than just reacting to them. That's not magic. That's awareness. And the more you practice it, the sharper it gets. Start paying attention to what draws your curiosity. Not what you're told to care about, but what quietly pulls at you. That strange book title, that person you keep running into, that idea that won't leave you alone. Curiosity is often the first whisper of synchronicity, disguised as a hunch. Don't ignore it. Follow it. Trace it. Let it unfold. And then there's emotion. Most people treat emotions like problems to be managed, but they're not problems. They're indicators, carriers of energy. When something feels off, listen. When something lights you up, follow. Your emotional body is a compass, constantly tuning into what your rational mind can't explain. Reconnecting with the synchronicity within also means recognizing that your life doesn't happen in a vacuum. The thoughts you dwell on, the energy you carry, the stories you repeat, they all become part of the field you walk through, and the universe, in turn, responds. Not in the way consumer spirituality promises, not by giving you everything you want, but by aligning you with what you're ready for. That readiness, that's the real frequency change. The moment your inner state shifts, your external reality starts to rearrange itself. Not always instantly, not always dramatically, but unmistakably. It's not about being positive all the time. It's about being honest, clear, awake. When you're aligned, synchronicity speeds up. You begin to feel like you're being led, not just wandering, that you're in conversation, not isolation, that your life isn't just happening, it's responding. So take space, create silence, move slower, let the signal rise to the surface. Stop waiting for some cosmic explosion of clarity and start noticing the quiet nudges already around you. Synchronicity isn't rare, it's regular, but it speaks at the volume you're willing to hear. When you stop forcing answers, the right ones find you. When you stop chasing signs, the signs arrive. Because the pattern isn't outside you, you are part of the pattern. And the moment you remember that, life starts to move differently. Not because anything changed, but because you did. You were never meant to wake up alone. Synchronicity isn't just personal, it's collective. It's not limited to the symbols in your own life. It pulses through the fabric of the entire human story. We don't just experience synchronicities as individuals. They show up in families, in communities, in movements. Entire generations feel the same shift at once. Not because someone told them to, but because something deeper stirred. Have you noticed how certain themes repeat across people's lives at the same time? How multiple friends go through the same kind of breakups, awakenings, relocations, losses, sometimes without speaking to each other. How artists on opposite sides of the world create similar work without ever crossing paths. That's not a coincidence. It's the pattern expressing itself across the collective field. Because we're not separate, we're entangled. You can call it a spiritual truth or a quantum one, it doesn't matter. What matters is that our consciousness is linked. What moves in one of us can ripple across thousands, even millions. And synchronicity is one of the ways the collective field evolves. It shows up not just to guide the individual, but to shift the whole. That's why the world feels so strange right now. Something is breaking. Or maybe something is waking. Systems are collapsing. Illusions are dissolving. And people everywhere are beginning to question what they were told to believe about success, about happiness, about time, about themselves. And in the middle of that chaos, synchronicity is showing up like never before. More people are seeing repeating numbers. More people are experiencing vivid dreams, strange alignments, unexplainable encounters that shake them. These aren't glitches, they're signals. The pattern is rising to the surface. The old systems trained us to ignore it, but it's getting harder to ignore now. Because it's not just in your life, it's everywhere. This kind of awakening is contagious. One person wakes up and shares their story, and it resonates with someone else. Not because of facts or logic, but because something clicks, a memory, a feeling, a knowing that can't be explained, only recognized. And once it spreads, the structure starts to shift. We begin to co-create a world that responds to meaning instead of control. That's why this moment matters. Not because you're finally learning something new, but because you're remembering something ancient. Something encoded in your DNA, in your dreams, in the quiet places of your heart. You were never supposed to sleepwalk through life. You were supposed to feel it, read it, move with it, together. Synchronicity invites us to move as one, each of us guided by our own symbols, yet part of a collective unfolding. It's not about agreeing on everything. It's about remembering that we are part of something bigger, older, wiser than any of us alone. The more we wake up to the signs, the more we wake up to each other. The more we recognize the pattern, the more we realize we've been part of it all along. There is no separation, only the illusion of it. Synchronicity is how the illusion starts to crack. It's how the invisible thread between us becomes visible, if only for a moment. But that moment can change everything. Because once you've seen it, you start living differently. Not just for yourself, but for the whole. There comes a moment when the weight of all the strange timings, the symbols, the impossible alignments, becomes too much to dismiss. You start piecing them together like a trail that was always there, just beneath the surface. You stop brushing them off. You stop asking, what are the odds? And start wondering, what is this trying to show me? Because deep down, a question begins to rise, one that changes everything. What if it was never a coincidence? What if the things you've called chance were the signs you were always meant to follow? What if those strange interruptions in your routine weren't accidents but instructions? What if the universe doesn't scream because it doesn't have to, because it already speaks through everything? Every delay, every pull, every gut feeling you couldn't justify but couldn't ignore. What if meaning isn't something you impose on life, but something life has been offering you all along? Synchronicity doesn't operate on demand. It doesn't show up to entertain you. It shows up to awaken you, to shake you just enough to question the script. It doesn't care about being understood. It cares about being noticed. And when you finally start noticing, life starts unfolding in a way you never thought possible. Not faster, not easier, but deeper. You begin to feel like you're moving with the current instead of against it. You stop living reactively and start moving intentionally. That's what alignment feels like. Not perfection, not clarity all the time, but movement with trust. It's realizing that your inner world shapes the outer one, that the more you live from your center, the more clearly the signs appear. You're no longer asking life to prove itself. You're meeting it where it is and letting it show you the next step. You start honoring the quiet things, the strange dreams, the feelings you can't name, the people who enter your life at the exact moment you needed them. You start living as if nothing is random. Because when you do, you begin to uncover a world that was never chaotic. It just required a different kind of attention. This isn't about having all the answers. It's about being awake enough to see the question when it arrives. It's about remembering that you're not alone in this life, that something bigger is walking with you, shaping the road as you take each step. Not ahead of you, with you. You don't need to control it. You just need to participate in it. So keep your eyes open, not just to what's in front of you, but to what's behind it. Let your life become the message. Let your awareness become the antenna. You don't have to chase the pattern. You are already in it. The signs were never outside of you. They were waiting for you to slow down, to notice, to remember. You were never off track. You were being guided the whole time. Most people will walk past their awakening without even realizing it. They'll call it luck, timing, randomness, and they'll move on just a little emptier than before. But you don't have to live like that. If you've felt something shift, if you've sensed the pattern pulling you closer, then don't ignore it. There's more. There's always more. And if you're ready to keep following that thread, to go deeper into what can't always be said out loud, join us in Insights Academy. It's our free newsletter where we explore the unseen truths behind this reality, and you'll also receive a digital copy of the Kybalion, a timeless hermetic guide to the hidden laws of the universe. The link is below. Don't miss it. The pattern never stops speaking. It's here, now, listening as you read these words. And if this video resonated with you, let us know by commenting, "I understood it,"